This is Maxwell Rotbart. I am coming to you from the Tikvah Fund's Jewish Leadership Conference in New York City. We just heard from a number of distinguished speakers ahead of the lunch break, including Professor Ruth Wisse, some students on college campuses talking about their experiences there, Dan Senner, who is the author of Startup Nation, as well as retired Major General Yaakov Amidror, who's former head of Israel's military intelligence. Among the topics that this distinguished group spoke about, I'll go through here, was we had Professor Wisse, who's an expert in Jewish literature, Yiddish literature. She was talking about the call for Jewish defense, that we shouldn't be martyrs again, that a lot of Yiddish literature focuses on Jewish martyrdom, but in many ways that is now unnecessary thanks to the creation of the State of Israel. She also spoke about the Holocaust, how we have built Yad Vashems, but we've not done enough to inculcate our youth to prepare for the fight of the future. We're focused very much still on remembering the past, and that has left us unprepared. We thought that people would learn their lessons, but they didn't, unfortunately. Among the important lessons is that what happened with the Holocaust was not theological, but was political. We need to be examining the political moments that we are in right now. Another thing that came up then during the college sessions that was taking place is just talking about a lot of anti-Semitism, which we know about, which we've seen on college campuses, but also Jewish students are doing what they can, often unsuccessfully, to stand up to their professors, to stand up to the administration, to defend their position. Unfortunately, a lot of professors are supporting the students. They're making it extra credit to go to these these anti-Israel rallies, pro-Hamas rallies that are taking place. And one of the big issues is with the admissions departments at the universities, which are continuing now to admit people and have been admitting people who believe in the genocide of the State of Israel. Then, as we got to Dan Senner, he would talk about his optimism for the future of the State of Israel. Among the optimistic things that he was discussing was that Israel's population, contrary to many Western countries, is growing, not shrinking, even as it becomes more educated. That Israel has among the world the smallest rate of teen suicide and smallest rate of loneliness because of the solidarity of the Jewish people, that from high and low, Haredi, secular, everyone is coming together now in Israel. The reserves turnout has been over 100%, even in some areas as high as 150%, as many people are re-enlisting. Israel being a small country, but it has a big global impact because in Israel we know how to make a difference. We then transitioned to a talk from Yaakov Amidror. Before that, there were some discussions from Jonathan Silver, editor of the Mosaic magazine, who spoke about the fact that Samson died fighting in Gaza, and Jews have been Gaza has been part of our history, and the Gazans who are praying for our weakness and our destruction, just like they were able to kill Samson, but we are fighters just like Samson is. Yaakov Amidror then went ahead and talked a little bit about what is going to come at the end of the war. He talked about the fact that Hamas will be gone, not necessarily its ideas, but definitely Hamas will be gone. That this is going to be a months-long war. Israel's going to move slowly through Gaza. Among the considerations we have to take is security from the north, what's going on with the hostages, that ultimately we can't just clear Hamas from Gaza on land, but below land also, where they are hiding out in tunnels. Said that mostly American pressure has been related to humanitarian needs, but Israel has no issue providing for the humanitarian needs of the Gazans. But also Israel is receiving pressure from the United States to distinguish between Hamas and civilians, which he sees as something difficult to do. Ultimately, this is a war not just between Israel and Hamas, but between the United States and the enemies of the United States, and the world is watching to see what is going to happen. Israel does not want permanent control of Gaza, but this war will only end when Israel achieves that. Among the ideas of what's going to take place next is whether or not there's going to be international control of Gaza, whether or not the PA is going to have control of it, the Palestinian Authority, whether or not we're going to leave the Gazans to decide their own future. Keeping in mind, last time they decided their own future, they picked their future to be Hamas. Ultimately, the Gazans are not babies. They have to take responsibility for themselves. It's not up to Israel or anyone else to take responsibility for them. We can't pick their leaders for them. But October 7th is not like the Holocaust, he said, because in the Holocaust, that was 4 years, 6 million dead. We had no ability to respond. Here we had 12 bad hours in which 1,400 were killed, and now we're back on the offensive. We're back defending the Jewish people. We know how to defend ourselves. Doesn't matter who made the intelligence failures. What matters is that whatever the failure is, we learn from the failure, and that Israel doesn't like preemptive wars. Western democracies don't like preemptive wars, but sometimes preemptive wars are necessary because they prevent something like this. And he hopes, looking to the future, that Israel will consider preemptive wars. This is Maxwell Rotbart coming from the first half of the Tikvah Fund Jewish Leadership Conference in New York City. Take care. Hi, this is Maxwell Rotbart. I am picking up following the lunch session here at the Tikvah Fund Jewish Leadership Conference. We heard from Elliot Abrams, who is a former U.S. government official. We also heard from educators and parents, Carolyn Brick and Rebecca Sugar, and from philanthropists Jennifer and David Millstone. There was then a talk that was given by Alon Newhouse of Tablet Magazine, as well as other media thinkers, including Christine Rosen and Michael Duran. Among the things that Elliot Abrams was talking about is the fact that Jewish education has really not changed enough in order to be pushing into Jewish schools and the minds of Jewish children what is going on just in Israel and the world at large. We need to have better education about Israeli history and modern Israel. We can't be teaching about Americanism and Zionism as forms of exploitation. We need to change the narrative on that. Among the other topics that some of the parents spoke about was the idea of pushing Hadar, the idea of Jewish dignity and courage. We need to instill that in our youth. We talk about social justice versus scripture. We need to be promoting scripture. Instead of pushing identity politics, we need to push identity building. We need to teach about Jewish heroes, modern Jewish heroes, Theodor Herzl, Zev Jabotinsky. We need to teach ideas to our kids and not just rules. We need to teach them to think like academics, but to act like they are tech entrepreneurs in terms of the vigor with which they go about things.
Our program will resume at 2:15. Please make your way back to the ballroom. Thank you.
And we need to train kids to defend our values. Hamas, one of the things discussed in the media session was the fact that Hamas has a media strategy, not a military strategy. Their media strategy is to see as many of their own civilians killed as possible, but this only works if Western media agrees to go along with it. We've gotten to the point that we don't trust our media any longer. They've not done enough to be trustworthy. We don't trust the government any longer, and it's hard for kids to tell the difference between what is real and what is not, what is artificial intelligence and what is not. We need to teach kids how to tell the difference between fact and fiction. This is the first war that is being waged via TikTok, and what's going on with these TikTok videos is that the algorithm, once you see one pro-Hamas video, keeps pushing you pro-Hamas videos, and that's problematic for our youth. And so we need to better educate them about that. The other thing is our enemy countries, Iran, Russia, China. they understand how to use social media messaging in a way that the United States has not gotten around. They become masters of Telegram and are using that sophisticatedly in order to manipulate the media. And so this is something that we all need to be cognizant of and focus on. And the other thing is that U.S. messaging matters. When people in the U.S. government issue a statement and then say, but this, what really is important is what comes after the but. And so there are constant criticisms of Israel's and Israel's government has undermined confidence in America's support of Israel among many Arab countries, which has in turn undermined the Abraham Accords. And it is important that the messaging that comes out from the United States government doesn't equivocate in that regard. The messaging needs to be not that Israel's war with Hamas is going to get Americans killed, but that Israelis are dying in order to protect Americans, because otherwise this is going to happen next in the United States. And finally, the media believes that its job is moral equivocation, but that is not the case. It needs to be presenting facts, not multiple sides of things. They can't just say that anti-Semitism is bad. They have to say anti-Semitism is bad, and here are a bunch of other things that are bad too. They're trying to balance justice and tolerance, but those two things don't always and oftentimes don't go together. And among the things that we need to do is to be honest about our feelings, not to hide them. We need to advocate, not show moral equivalence. And there are going to be a lot of people who disagree with us, and they're also going to have a lot of supporters, and we need to hang on to our supporters and continue to thank them for their support. Hi, this is Maxwell Rotbart. We just finished the last session at the Tikvah Fund's Jewish Leadership Conference. Among the people who we heard from here were Larry Arnn from Hillsdale College, Bill Barr, Attorney General of the United States, Paul Clement, Solicitor General of the United States, Robert George, a law professor at Princeton University, Dr. Leon Cass, an academic living in Israel, and Rabbi Meir Soloveitchik of the Spanish and Portuguese Synagogue. It was a whirlwind session, series of whirlwind sessions that talked about a lot of things. Among the things that Larry Arnn from Hillsdale College talked about is that people say that opinions, your opinion is sacred, but your opinions are not sacred. Opinions is not what should be respected in today's world, but knowledge is, fact is, truth is, not whatever your personal opinion on anything is. He talks about a lot about Martin Gilbert, the historian, and the excellence that Martin Gilbert brought to academia, and specifically to the study of the Jewish people and the study of Israel. Talked about the relationship between Athens and Jerusalem, Athens bringing us the concept of truth, Jerusalem bringing us the concept of God, and how those two work together. He also talked about the importance of gratitude as an ideal and something that should continue to be practiced, something that is very important within Christian thought and theology. He talked about the fact that abusing people verbally is not free speech. Right? Abusing people verbally is actually a violation of free speech because you are preventing them from expressing themselves, especially when we see people who are interrupting all these Israel rallies that are taking place. You need to be civil to one another, and if you are rude accidentally, the respectful thing to do is to apologize for it. Speaking of Hillsdale College, he says that Hillsdale has a very a curriculum that does not take in all of these thoughts that are seen at other colleges. He said that if you don't like our curriculum, you can go someplace else, but we teach values here at Hillsdale College. And among the things he also spoke about is India as a burgeoning country, and something where he believes Israel should be making inroads into reaching India and getting India to be on Team Israel, since the other major superpower in Asia, China, increasingly seems like it is not. Then, as we go through, we had this forum with the Attorney General, the Solicitor General, and the Princeton professor. And among the things they talked about is religious liberty. And the idea that religious liberty is not just a nod to piety, but in fact, religious liberty is something that is absolutely central to our daily lives and the way we practice our lives. That our founding fathers envisioned a limited government, and the reason they envisioned a limited government is they believed that religion would keep people in check internally. Therefore, you don't need a tyrannical government to keep people in check. But as people lose religion, they lose that internal check and begin to behave in ways that are inappropriate towards their fellow human beings. And so that would lead then to the necessity of having a more tyrannical form of government as we have given up our religion. We also spoke about the Supreme Court and how the current Supreme Court, for all of its criticism, has actually been excellent when it comes to religious liberty and opening up the door for more religious practice, because you have two clauses in the Constitution pertaining to religious freedom. The first is the Free Exercise Clause, which says that you can practice your religion, but the other is the Establishment Clause, which said the government will not impose a religion. But what's happened is restrictions related to the Establishment Clause, making sure the government doesn't impose a religion, has also led to abuses of the Free Exercise Clause, in which religious institutions don't receive the same treatment by the government as secular institutions, and how the current Supreme Court has been reversing that. And again, more just discussion about how religion dominates our lives. Religion is so important to the way we view the world, to the way we view each other, and we need to be celebrating religion. As one of the panelists pointed out, Martin Luther King based everything he did in the desegregation movement on his religious ideas. And if he was not allowed, or hadn't been allowed, to spread his religious ideas, that would have been very challenging to the anti-integration movements of desegregation, etc. They talk about the idea that in secular society, toleration is considered a virtue, but religion says sometimes there are things that just cannot be tolerated, and we should have the right to exercise that freedom. How law as a discipline can actually serve as a great teacher, and people behave according to the laws of the land. And when the laws of the land are saying you need to keep religion at home, not in the workplace, that is reflected on how people behave in terms of their moral values. When the law of the land allows more religious freedom within the workplace, that allows people to be more tolerant in general of people of other faiths and other opinions. And instead of waiting to see how other people respond to what's going on in Israel, the best religious leaders were the ones who stepped forward and came out with statements first defending Israel, not just getting a sense of which way the wind is blowing. But then what we did is we transitioned to the talk by Leon Kass. And part of what Leon Kass discussed as he went through is the idea that Jewish lives matter. And Jewish lives matter not because we're historically victims, not because we're nativists, not because we want to get revenge on all the anti-Semites, but Jewish lives matter intrinsically. And that Israel is a country founded on the principle of never again. Israel is a diverse country, both among other cultures that are not Jewish and among the Jews who live in Israel. And even the debates that are taking place in Israel recently about judicial reform are all rooted in Jewish values on both sides of what it is that is taking place in the debate. Everybody there believes in the shared Torah values of dignity, family, life, equality, all of that. He talked about the fact that anti-Semitism is really based in the fact that people hate us because we are anti-idolatry, and there are new idols that are out there, whether the idol is communism, fascism, radical Islam, people idolize the arts, people idolize the free market, whatever it should be, those are false gods and lead people astray. Talks about Winston Churchill, the fact that Israel is taking the stand that Winston Churchill took against the Nazis back in the 1940s, and that we are on the front line, Israel that is, of the fight against these false idols that are trying to permeate our society. Israel is standing there right now almost entirely alone, but Israel is leading the good fight and fighting the good fight And though we may fail in our fight, we will not abandon the summons. Then we heard from Rabbi Soloveitchik, and Rabbi Soloveitchik spoke about a menorah that was set up by Rabbi Kiva Posner in Kiel, Germany in 1931 in his window opposite a Nazi flag across the street, and saying that people who mock Judaism, who oppose Judaism, ultimately it is Judaism that succeeds. It is the light of the Hanukkah menorah that succeeds, and it is not the darkness that the Nazi flag brings. And the Nazi Germans, they were leaders in arts and science and intellect. And even though throughout all of that didn't stop the rise of Nazism, and in many ways it was their leadership in arts and science and the intellect made them more compatible to Nazism. And so we shouldn't think that education is a solve for anti-Semitism. What is, in fact, though, is moral wisdom. That people who defend infanticide as decolonization, as a form of decolonization, are not exhibiting moral wisdom. And what we need to focus on is not just what we are fighting against, but what we are fighting for. And he, again, spoke to the fact that Israel is the creation of the state of Israel is a historic achievement. And as Winston Churchill once said to Chaim Weizmann, thanks to this creation of the state of Israel, the light grows. I'm Maxwell Rotbart, and I am reporting from the Jewish Leadership Conference put on by the Tikvah Fund in New York City. Take care.